Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video. In today's video, we will be discussing what no one tells you about anxiety. People talk about panic attacks, the rapid heartbeat, the shortness of breath, the overwhelming fear that seems to come out of nowhere. And yes, that's anxiety. But what about the other kind? The kind that doesn't come crashing in like a storm, but instead drips in slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. What about the moments when you're just sitting there, doing something ordinary, and a sudden knot forms in your stomach, but you can't quite explain why? Or when you're lying in bed, exhausted, but your mind starts running through every possible scenario, most of them bad, and won't let you sleep? What about when you're constantly second-guessing yourself in conversations, replaying what you said hours later, wondering if you sounded weird or if you should have just stayed quiet? Or when you cancel plans last minute, not because you don't care, but because you feel too mentally drained to show up as yourself? That kind of anxiety doesn't scream. It whispers. It hides behind perfectionism, behind busyness, behind phrases like "I'm just tired" or "I've just got a lot going on." It's the kind of anxiety that blends into your life so well, you might not even recognize it for what it is. But it's there, always humming in the background, always weighing you down, little by little. And the truth is, that kind of anxiety? It's just as real. Just as valid, just as deserving of care and attention. We don't talk about it enough, but we should. Because so many people are living with it every single day, often in silence. One of the biggest things that no one really talks about when it comes to anxiety is avoidance. Not the kind that's easy to spot, not the obvious stuff, like skipping a big meeting or bailing on a public speaking event. That's what people expect. That's what we picture when we hear anxiety. But the truth is, avoidance shows up in much quieter, more personal ways. It's the unread text sitting in your phone for days, not because you don't care, but because the idea of replying feels weirdly overwhelming, like you'd have to explain yourself, and you're not even sure how. It's dodging eye contact in a conversation because you're afraid someone might really see how tired you are. It's canceling plans, not because you don't want to go, but because the idea of being on, of performing normalcy, feels too heavy. It's putting off that email, that appointment, that conversation, telling yourself "I'll do it tomorrow," but tomorrow never really comes. It's avoiding mirrors, avoiding decisions, avoiding rest, because the moment you slow down, the thoughts get louder. Sometimes, anxiety isn't about what you're doing. It's about what you're not doing, all the little things you're quietly stepping around just to make it through the day. And over time, those things add up. You start to shrink your world without even realizing it, making your life smaller and smaller, just to feel safe. But here's the thing, avoidance isn't laziness. It's self-protection. It's your nervous system trying to cope in the only way it knows how. It's not your fault, but it is something you deserve support for. Because you don't have to keep living in retreat from your own life. Then there's overthinking, one of the most exhausting parts of anxiety, and also one of the most invisible. It usually starts with something small. A comment you made. A look someone gave you. A task left undone. Nothing major, nothing that anyone else would even notice. But in your mind, it sticks. It loops. It grows. You start replaying it over and over. What did they mean by that? Did I sound awkward? Did I mess it up? Did I come off too intense? Too distant? Too much? And before you know it, that single thought branches off into 100 other possibilities, none of them good. Every what if leads to another, until your brain feels like it's racing ahead of you, like you're chasing a train you can't catch. And the worst part? You know you're overthinking. You're aware that your thoughts are spiraling. You might even try to talk yourself down. "I'm being ridiculous. I need to stop." But that doesn't stop it. In fact, sometimes, trying to fight it just adds another layer of anxiety. Now you're anxious about being anxious. It's like a hamster wheel in your mind, spinning faster and faster, but going nowhere. You can't rest. You can't let go. You're mentally running, even when your body is still. Overthinking is exhausting, not because you're doing so much, but because your mind won't stop. And it's not that you want to overanalyze everything, it's just that anxiety makes everything feel high stakes. Every word, every decision, every silence. But here's what's important to remember, your brain is trying to protect you. It's scanning for danger, trying to predict outcomes so you can stay safe. It's doing its job, just a little too well. And that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're wired for survival in a world that often feels uncertain. You don't have to fix your mind, just begin to understand it, gently, slowly, with compassion, not criticism. And let's not forget about perfectionism, one of anxiety's most clever disguises. Because anxiety isn't always about fear in the traditional sense. Sometimes, it's about control. About trying to manage every possible outcome, every variable, every tiny detail, not out of vanity or ego, but out of a deep, internal fear that if you don't, everything will fall apart, or worse, you will fall apart. Perfectionism often looks like over-preparing, over-editing, overthinking, staying up until 2 a.m. tweaking something that was already good enough hours ago. Not because you're ambitious, but because there's this ache in your chest that won't let you leave it alone. Because deep down, good enough doesn't feel safe. It feels like a risk. It's checking your message 3 times before sending it. Rewriting a sentence you already rewrote. Starting over, again and again, because nothing ever feels quite right. And when things do go right, you don't feel proud, you feel relieved. Like you barely avoided disaster. That's what perfectionism under anxiety looks like. It's not about excellence, it's about survival. No one tells you that perfectionism is a trap. A self-made cage with walls built from should-haves and not good enoughs. You think you're protecting yourself, but really, you're exhausting yourself. Burning yourself out trying to outrun a version of failure that probably doesn't even exist. And here's the quiet truth no one says out loud: perfection is a moving target. You will never feel like you've hit it. Because perfectionism doesn't bring peace, it only demands more. But you're allowed to let go. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to be unfinished, imperfect, human. You are still enough, even when you're not everything. And in the middle of all of this, the overthinking, the avoiding, the perfectionism, there's something else that creeps in quietly: emotional exhaustion. It's not always visible. You can't always name it. But you feel it, deep in your bones. It's the kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. You wake up already worn out, already bracing yourself for the day, even if nothing particularly bad is happening. It's the exhaustion of constantly managing your thoughts, monitoring your tone, replaying your interactions, and carrying around emotions you don't always feel safe expressing. It's the heaviness of pretending you're okay, smiling when you're not, saying I'm fine when really, you feel anything but. It's the fatigue that comes from always being on. From scanning every room, every text, every situation for what could go wrong. From bottling things up because you don't want to burden anyone. You don't want to be the person who's too much or too sensitive or still dealing with it. So instead, you hold it in. You push through. You tell yourself to keep it together, even though you're quietly falling apart on the inside. And over time, that quiet burden starts to weigh you down. The weight isn't dramatic, it's not a collapse. It's slow, subtle, cumulative. Like carrying a backpack filled with invisible bricks every single day. Anxiety doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it whispers. Taps you on the shoulder just when you're trying to relax. Clouds your thoughts just when things are finally calm. Reminds you of everything that could go wrong, just when something starts to feel right. And that constant mental load? That's real. That's exhausting. And it's okay if you're tired. It's okay if all you managed today was just getting through. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it. What you're feeling is valid. And you deserve rest, care, and compassion, not just when you're burned out, but before you reach that point. If you're feeling this way, know that you're not alone, not even close. So many people walk around with invisible weight on their shoulders, smiling through the ache, nodding through the noise, pushing through the pressure, just like you. Anxiety doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sneaks in quietly, almost unnoticed, until it starts coloring everything you do, think, or feel. It can show up as hesitation, as second-guessing, as pulling back when you want to move forward. It can make everyday tasks feel 10 times harder, and silence feel unbearably loud. But just because it's quiet, doesn't mean it's small. And just because others can't see it, doesn't mean it isn't real. Here's the thing, you don't have to face it in silence. You don't have to carry it alone. It's okay to talk about it, really talk about it, even if your voice shakes. It's okay to ask for help, to say I'm struggling, to say I don't know why I feel like this, but I do. That's not weakness, that's strength in its rawest, most human form. You don't have to fix everything overnight. You don't need to have it all figured out. Sometimes, healing begins with the smallest steps: drinking a glass of water, taking a deep breath, getting out of bed, texting a friend, making that first therapy appointment, or simply reminding yourself, I made it through today. And if tomorrow feels hard too, that's okay. Take it one moment at a time. Some days will be heavier than others, but none of it defines your worth. You are more than your anxiety. You are still whole, still valuable, still deserving of love, peace, and care, even on the days when it doesn't feel that way. You're not alone in this. Truly. And you never have to be. If you're feeling this way, really feeling it, the tight chest, the racing thoughts, the exhaustion that doesn't seem to go away, I want you to know something important. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're just carrying something heavy. And no one taught us how to carry it. Anxiety doesn't always show up the way people expect. Sometimes, it's not a panic attack in the middle of a crowded room. Sometimes it's a quiet unease that follows you from morning to night. A constant buzzing in the background of your life that others can't see, but you can feel. And even though it can make you feel isolated, even though it convinces you that no one would understand, the truth is, so many people know exactly what you're going through. They've been there. Or they are there, right now. Just like you. So let this be a small reminder, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to admit that you're struggling. That things feel heavy. That you're tired. It doesn't make you a burden, it makes you brave. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be strong all the time. Start small. One breath. One pause. One honest moment with yourself. One conversation with someone you trust. These small steps, they matter more than you think. Healing doesn't come all at once. It arrives slowly, gently, sometimes in ways you don't even notice until later. But it does come. So if today feels hard, let it be hard. But don't give up on yourself. Keep showing up, even if all you can manage is existing quietly. You're doing better than you think. And you are never, ever alone in this.